He always sat at table 6. Corner seat. Black hoodie, laptop, Americano, no sugar. I noticed him first because he never scrolled on his phone. Just stared out the window like the world outside was saying something only he could hear. I worked the morning shift at Bean and Bloom, a small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. I'd been there for 6 months balancing trays and college classes, living mostly on caffeine and tips. He showed up one Tuesday. I remember because my manager whispered, "Cute one at 6. Smile." The first time he barely looked up. Just a quiet thanks when I set down his cup. But the next day he came again. Then again. Always alone. Always at table 6. By the 5th visit I started guessing his order before he said it. "Americano, right?" I asked. He smiled small shy. "Yeah, you've got a good memory." That smile stuck with me the whole shift. Weeks passed. He started bringing a notebook. Sometimes sketching, sometimes writing. I tried not to stare, but I couldn't help it. There was something about the way he focused, like he was building another world inside that coffee cup. One rainy afternoon, the cafe was half empty. He was there, tapping his pen, lost in thought. I brought his refill and joked, "If you keep this up, we'll have to name table 6 after you." He laughed, soft, genuine. "Then I'll have to tip better to earn the plaque." That was the first time we really talked. About classes, favorite coffee blends, music that helps you think. I found out his name was Evan. Architecture major. Lived nearby. And apparently he'd noticed me too. "You hum when you pour milk," he said. "It's kind of nice." I didn't realize I was blushing until he smiled again. That night I walked home through the rain, my uniform still smelling like espresso and cinnamon syrup. I couldn't stop replaying his voice. But the next day he didn't come. Or the next. By the 4th empty morning I tried to convince myself it didn't matter. Customers come and go. But every time someone sat at table 6 my chest tightened. Then on Friday he returned. Flowers in hand. He set them gently on the counter. "Sorry I disappeared. Midterms," he said. But I was wondering, do you ever get to sit at a table instead of serve one? I froze. Then laughed. "Depends on who's asking." "Then I guess I'll have to keep asking," he said. That's how it started. With coffee, rain, and a boy at table 6. Dating a regular from your cafe sounds like a movie cliché. But with Evan it felt strangely natural, like it had been waiting to happen. We started simple. After my shifts he'd walk me home, paper cups still warm in our hands. We talked about little things, his studio projects, my classes, our mutual hatred of early alarms. Sometimes he'd wait for me at the end of my shift, pretending to study while sneaking glances my way. When we finally had our first real date, not surrounded by coffee grinders and milk steam, I realized how nervous I was. We went to a quiet diner near the park. He wore the same hoodie but smiled differently that night, like he was letting me see the version of him no one else got. Halfway through dessert he asked, "So what do you want to do after school?" I hesitated. Honestly, no idea. Maybe something creative. Or maybe I'll just keep pouring coffee until something clicks. He grinned. "You underestimate how many people you make happy with that." It was cheesy, but it worked. Weeks melted into months. He'd come by the cafe after class. Sometimes help me clean up when I stayed late. Once, he left a note under a saucer. "Your coffee's perfect, but your smile's better." I pretended not to see it for a full hour just to hide how much it made me blush. But good things, even quiet ones, always find their cracks. It started small. He'd joke about how late I stayed at work. "They really make you close every night?" he asked once, his tone a little sharp. "Yeah, someone has to," I said. "It's fine." A few days later he stopped showing up at closing. I figured he was busy. But when I texted, his replies got shorter. Then one night I saw him at the cafe, but not at table 6. He was sitting outside across the street, talking to a girl from his class. They were laughing, leaning close. I told myself it was nothing. But my stomach didn't listen. The next day when he came in I tried to act normal. But I must have been off because he frowned. "You okay?" "Fine," I said too fast. He sighed. "You're doing that thing again, pretending everything's fine when it's not." I froze. He wasn't wrong. So I said it. "I saw you yesterday. With that girl." His eyes widened, then softened. "Lena. She's in my design group. We were finishing a project." "That's it." I nodded, but the air between us felt heavier than steam from the espresso machine. He reached across the counter, fingers brushing mine. I don't want this to turn into something small and stupid. You matter to me, okay? I wanted to believe him. I really did. But later that night, as I wiped down table 6, I noticed something missing. The tiny coffee stain shaped like a heart we used to joke about. Someone had cleaned it off. For some reason, that small, empty spot made my chest ache more than anything he'd said. For a week he didn't come. I pretended I was fine, that I didn't notice. But I did. Every morning when I tied my apron, I glanced at table 6. Empty. Always empty. The cafe felt quieter without him. Even the espresso machine sounded duller. My coworkers joked, "No table 6 today?" And I'd shrug, pretending to be busy with the milk frother. I told myself it wasn't serious, that we weren't that close yet. But every time the bell over the door rang, my heart did that stupid hopeful thing. It wasn't just about liking him. It was how he made the days softer. When we were together, the world seemed to slow down. No rush, no noise. Just calm. Now that calm was gone, and all I had left were half-finished text drafts and the smell of coffee on my hands. Friday night. Rain outside, slow and cold. I was wiping down tables before closing when the door chimed again. I didn't even look up. "Sorry, we're closing soon." Then I guess I made it just in time. His voice froze me mid-sentence. Evan stood by the counter, soaked through his hoodie, rain dripping from his hair. He held a small foil-covered tray like a peace offering. "I brought cinnamon rolls," he said, a little breathless. "They're homemade." "Sort of." I blinked. "You bake now." "Desperate times," he said, cracking a nervous smile. "Can we talk?" The cafe was empty, just the low hum of the fridge and the rain outside. I nodded and motioned to table 6. He laughed softly. "Of course." We sat down, same spot, same cups, same table that had somehow become ours. I poured 2 coffees from the pot I hadn't yet dumped out. The cinnamon rolls were uneven, one slightly burnt, one collapsed, but they smelled like butter and sugar and effort. He looked tired. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for vanishing, for making you feel like you couldn't trust me." I stared at my cup. "You didn't have to disappear." "I didn't mean to," he said quickly. "I just didn't know how to fix it. I hate fights. I hate feeling like I messed up something good." I wanted to stay angry. I really did. But his voice cracked on that last word. "Good." And something inside me softened. "Then stop running," I said. "If we're going to be together, you can't disappear every time something feels off. I can handle honesty. I can't handle silence." He nodded. "You're right. I was stupid." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of rain, and the low hum of the streetlight flickering through the window. Then he reached across the table, palm open. His hand was cold, trembling a little. "Can I stay?" he asked. I stared at his hand, the one that used to hold pens and sketchbooks while I brought him coffee. The one I'd secretly memorized without meaning to. Then I took it. He exhaled, shoulders dropping like he'd been holding his breath for a week. We talked for hours after that, about the project stress, the misunderstanding, the way both of us overthink everything. He told me the girl I saw with him was just his design partner who'd helped him pull an all-nighter before the deadline. "She's dating someone, by the way," he added, almost shyly. I laughed, the first real laugh in days. "You could have just said that." "Yeah," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Guess I'm better with sketches than words." That night, when we locked up the cafe together, he waited while I turned off the lights. Before leaving, he looked back once more at table 6. "It's weird," he said. "That's where I first saw you. You look so serious carrying that tray. I thought you'd never even notice me." "I noticed," I said softly. "More than I should have." He smiled. And that was the moment I knew whatever came next, we'd find our way through it. Months later, things between us had changed. Not in a dramatic way, but in the quiet, steady way real things do. We didn't need daily messages or constant reassurance. We just knew. He'd still drop by after class, laptop and all. Sometimes he'd study while I worked, sneaking glances when he thought I wasn't looking. Other times we'd close the cafe together, split leftover pastries, and talk about nothing and everything. Once he brought one of his architecture models to show me, a tiny version of a coffee shop with big windows and warm lights. "Inspired by Bean and Bloom," he said. "And by you." I laughed, pretending not to blush. "What's this little table in the corner?" "Table 6, he said. "The heart of the place." We both knew what that meant. One quiet evening near the end of summer, he texted, Meet me at the cafe after your shift. I have something to show you. When I got there, the cafe was dark. Chairs stacked, sign flipped to closed. I thought he was late, until I saw a faint glow inside. He'd lit a single candle on table 6. The rest of the cafe was still silent. On the table sat an empty coffee cup with a small folded note inside. I opened it. Our first table. Our forever spot. When I looked up, he was standing there with that same shy smile from months ago. The one that started everything. No big speech, no dramatic music, just that quiet, certain look. And somehow that was more than enough. We sat down, holding hands across the old wooden table, the rain tapping against the windows again, like the night we first really talked. The world outside kept moving, but in that little corner of the cafe, time stood still. Table 6 wasn't just a place anymore. It was our story. And it all began with a cup of coffee and a boy who smiled back.